Life has a funny way of guiding us toward our purpose. We often find ourselves stressed, wondering when the next opportunity will come, what our career path should look like, and how we can move forward. But what if I told you that the answers don't lie in finding a job? What if I told you that God is calling you to something greater? Something deeper than simply filling a position in this world. Today we're going to explore what happens when we stop looking for a job and start trusting in the divine purpose that's already within us. Before we dive in, I just want to take a quick moment to invite you to join this community. If you're finding value in what we're sharing, I'd love for you to take a second to like this video, subscribe to the channel, and hit that bell icon so you never miss an update. And if this message resonates with you, don't keep it to yourself. Share it with someone who might need to hear it today. Together, we're building a space where authenticity, vulnerability, and growth can thrive. Thank you for being here. Let's get started. So often, we find ourselves trapped in the relentless cycle of trying to control our own destiny. We work tirelessly, make countless plans, and even rush to reach the next milestone, believing that if we can just get to the next step, everything will fall into place. But God's timing is something so much greater than our own. It's easy to forget that while we're sprinting forward, trying to get ahead, God's plan for us is moving at the exact pace we need. His timing isn't just about when things happen, it's about how and why they happen. When you're in the middle of waiting, it can feel like you're stuck. You look around and everyone else seems to have their lives together. Getting promotions, starting businesses, finding relationships, and achieving their dreams. You might even start to wonder, why isn't it my turn? Why is God allowing me to stay in this place of uncertainty? This is where trust becomes so important. Trusting the timing of God means letting go of your own timeline and trusting that He has already planned every detail. We often feel like we're missing out on something, but the truth is God is preparing us for something bigger than we can even imagine. God's timing isn't governed by the clock or the calendar. It's governed by His perfect will for our lives. When we think things should happen quickly, we forget that growth often happens in the quiet, slow moments. Trusting in God's timing isn't about a quick fix or an instant solution. It's about understanding that while we might feel like we're in limbo, He's molding us, refining us, and preparing us for what's ahead. We might not see it right now, but each day spent in waiting is another step closer to becoming who we are meant to be. And here's the thing, trusting God's timing requires a great deal of faith. It's not always easy. We want answers now. We want action. We want results. But sometimes the most powerful thing we can do is simply wait. Wait for His direction. Wait for His provision. Wait for His confirmation. This waiting period isn't wasted time. It's a time for growth, a time to strengthen our relationship with God, and a time to deepen our understanding of who we truly are. There will be moments when you feel like you're at the end of your rope, when you're exhausted from waiting, when frustration sets in. But trust in this, God has a plan, and His plan is far greater than anything you can create on your own. When you release control and embrace His timing, you allow space for miracles to unfold in ways you could never have orchestrated yourself. It's important to remember that God doesn't work according to the world's standards of success. He's not concerned with how quickly we achieve things or how many accomplishments we can tick off a list. His focus is on building character, faith, and perseverance within us. The timing might not always align with what we expect, but that's because He sees the bigger picture. He knows what's coming, and He knows that in order for us to handle what He has for us, we need to grow in certain areas we may not even realize are necessary yet. So instead of rushing ahead, lean into the season you're in Know that you are exactly where you need to be right now. Trust the pace that God has set for you, even if it's slower than you'd like. His timing is not delayed. It's perfect, and it's working out in ways that will bless you in ways you can't yet fathom. Every moment of waiting is an opportunity to trust deeper, to surrender your own plans, and to embrace the beauty of His divine purpose for your life. Trust the process. Trust the timing. God's got you. We often hear people say, trust the timing of God, but what does that really mean? And why is it so difficult to embrace, especially when we feel like time is slipping away or we're falling behind in some way? We live in a world that operates on deadlines, schedules, and expectations where everything seems to need to happen quickly or according to a predetermined timeline. In a society like this, we become conditioned to rush from one milestone to the next, driven by the fear that if we don't move fast enough, we might miss out or fail to reach our full potential. But when we bring this mindset into our faith, it can cause us to lose sight of the truth that God's timing is not just different from our own, it's perfect. The first thing we have to understand is that God is not bound by the same constraints we are. He doesn't look at time the way we do. Our sense of urgency and impatience often leads us to question why things aren't moving faster or why certain prayers haven't been answered yet. But God is outside of time. His perspective is eternal, and He sees the beginning and the end all at once. What we may think is a delay, a setback, or a waiting period is actually a part of the bigger picture, a process of shaping us into who we need to be in order to handle what He has planned for us. In those moments when it feels like nothing is happening, when you're frustrated by unanswered prayers or unfulfilled dreams, remember that God is working behind the scenes, weaving everything together in ways that are far beyond our understanding. His plan for your life isn't something that can be rushed. Just like a seed takes time to grow into a strong tree, your purpose, your calling, and your destiny require a process of cultivation, patience, and trust. There is value in the waiting. Waiting isn't just about passing time. It's about transformation. And it's in this space of waiting that we are invited to let go of our own timelines and trust that God's timing is not just a convenience, but a part of His intentional work in us. The waiting period is an opportunity for growth, for refinement, for deeper faith. It's in these moments that God works on our character, building patience, resilience, and trust that will be necessary when the time comes to step into the new season He has prepared for us. Trusting God's timing also means embracing the idea that delays and detours aren't obstacles. They are opportunities for us to get ready for the bigger blessing ahead. We often don't understand why certain doors remain closed, why some opportunities pass us by, or why things don't seem to be going according to our plans. But when we trust God's timing, we begin to recognize that what we see as a setback might actually be His protection, or perhaps an invitation to deepen our faith, to shift our perspective, or to prepare for something far greater than what we had originally envisioned. In fact, there are times when the delays themselves are a gift. It may be that God is protecting us from something we can't yet see, or that He is giving us time to grow stronger, more resilient, and more aligned with His purpose. There may be lessons, relationships, or experiences that need to happen before we can fully step into the new opportunities that await us. And God, in His infinite wisdom, is guiding us along the path that will allow us to flourish and thrive rather than forcing us into a situation we're not yet ready for. It's also essential to remember that God's timing is not just about when things happen, but how they happen. When things come in alignment with God's timing, they happen in a way that brings glory to Him and makes us fully aware of His hand at work. Sometimes when we rush things or try to force them to fit into our schedule, we miss the beauty of the moment. We may not even realize what God is trying to teach us through the waiting, or how He's orchestrating events in a way that will ultimately lead to something greater than we could have ever imagined. But when we trust Him, we step into His timing with peace, knowing that whatever unfolds is exactly what we need, even if we can't fully understand it at the moment. Another key element of trusting God's timing is learning to let go of control. We may think we know the right time, the right place, and the right circumstances for our dreams to come to life, but God sees the full picture. He knows what we need, when we need it, and how it will unfold in the most beautiful and perfect way. Learning to release our own grip on the timeline is an act of faith, and it's in that surrender that we discover a new level of peace and trust in God's sovereignty. Every step, every delay, every moment of uncertainty is part of a greater plan. God's timing might not always match our expectations, but it will always be better than what we could have imagined. It's not about rushing to the destination. It's about trusting that we're exactly where we need to be right now, and that everything is unfolding exactly as it should. So when you're tempted to feel anxious or frustrated with the waiting, remember that you are in the hands of a God who is never late, never too early, and always right on time. His timing is perfect, and He is at work in your life, even when you can't see it. Trust that He is leading you toward the future He has already prepared for you, and that His plan will always be better than anything you could have planned for yourself. In a world that places so much emphasis on what we do, it's incredibly easy to fall into the trap of thinking that our worth is directly tied to our jobs, our titles, or our accomplishments. From a young age, we're asked, what do you want to be when you grow up? We're conditioned to define ourselves by our work. Whether we're students, professionals, stay-at-home parents, or entrepreneurs, society encourages us to measure our value by our output. Our resumes, job titles, and income seem to become the markers of our identity. But the truth is, you are not defined by your work. Your value doesn't come from the work you do. It comes from who you are and whose you are. The world tells us that success is about climbing the ladder, achieving the next milestone, and reaching the pinnacle of professional accomplishment. But what happens when that ladder leads us nowhere? What happens when the promotion we were working so hard for doesn't bring fulfillment or joy, or when we're suddenly left without the job that once defined us? For many, this can be an identity crisis. Feeling like we've lost our sense of self because we were so attached to the roles we played at work. But we have to remember that our work is not who we are. Our careers are part of our lives, but they don't define us at our core. Who we are transcends what we do for a living. Our true identity is found in something deeper than any professional title or position. We are human beings, not human doings. Our worth is inherent, not earned. In the eyes of God, we are worthy simply because we exist. We are His beloved children, created in His image, filled with purpose and potential far beyond the confines of any job description. When we can internalize this truth, that we are loved and valued regardless of our occupation, we begin to release the pressure to prove our worth through external achievements. It's easy to fall into the trap of attaching our sense of self-worth to the work we do, especially when we live in a society that glorifies productivity and success. In our culture, it's often the first thing we ask people when we meet them. What do you do? And while it's natural to be curious, it also reinforces the idea that who we are is synonymous with what we do. But think about it. If our value is rooted in what we do, what happens when we can no longer do that? What happens when we retire, lose our job, or have to step away from the career we've worked so hard to build? Does our worth vanish? Of course not. But without a solid understanding of who we are beyond our work, it can feel like we've lost our identity. True fulfillment comes from recognizing that our worth is not contingent on our productivity. The work we do can be meaningful and valuable, but it's not what gives us value. Whether you're a CEO or a stay-at-home parent, Whether you're an artist, teacher, or janitor, your identity is not defined by the tasks you complete or the role you fill. You are defined by the love and grace that God has given you and by the unique qualities that make you who you are. Your kindness, your creativity, your compassion, your intelligence, your resilience. These things cannot be taken away by the changing tides of your professional life. In fact, when we stop identifying ourselves solely by our work, we are free to experience life in a much more profound way. We no longer need to prove ourselves through our accomplishments or validate our worth by how much we achieve. We can step into every day with a sense of purpose and peace, knowing that we are enough just as we are. This doesn't mean that we don't strive for excellence or give our best in the work we do. On the contrary, it means that we approach our work from a place of wholeness, not from a place of striving for validation. When we know that our value isn't tied to what we do, we are liberated to pursue work that aligns with our passions and strengths, rather than work that simply validates our existence. When you know that your worth is not defined by your work, you can fully embrace the beauty of who you are. You can pursue your passions without fear of judgment or comparison. You can rest in the assurance that no matter how much or how little you accomplish, your worth remains. God's love for you is not dependent on your career achievements. He loves you as you are, not as you do. Furthermore, when we learn to separate our identity from our work, we also become more present in the relationships that matter most. We're able to show up for our families, friends, and communities in a more authentic way because we're not so consumed by the pressure to do and to succeed. We can just be, to be present, to listen, to love, and to experience life without constantly measuring ourselves against the next goal or achievement. Embracing the truth that you are not defined by your work opens up the possibility for a deeper, more authentic life. It frees you from the need to chase external validation and allows you to connect with what truly matters. You can approach your work with purpose and passion, knowing that your worth is not found in the outcome, but in the simple act of being yourself. You are enough, regardless of the role you play or the work you do. You are valuable simply because you exist, because you are you, and that is enough. Resting in God's provision is an act of deep faith and trust that many of us find difficult to embrace, especially in a world that values self-sufficiency, independence, and the constant need to control our own circumstances. From a young age, we are taught that if we want something, we need to work hard for it, earn it, and ensure that we are always striving to secure our future. We are told to hustle, to make plans, to create our own success. While hard work and preparation are important, there comes a point in our lives where we must recognize that we are not in control of everything. And when we come to that realization, we are invited into a deeper level of trust. Trust that God's provision is enough. Trust that He is always faithful to meet our needs. And trust that He knows exactly what we need when we need it. The world tells us that we have to be in constant motion, always planning, always securing the next step, always striving to ensure that our needs are met. But the truth is, God's provision is not about striving, it's about resting. Resting in the assurance that He is the provider, not us. This doesn't mean that we sit idly by and do nothing, but rather it means that we let go of the heavy burden of trying to control every outcome. It means that we trust that God will take care of us in the same way that He takes care of the birds of the air and the flowers of the field, as He tells us in Matthew 6:26-30. If God can care for the sparrows, how much more will He care for us, His beloved children? When we choose to rest in God's provision, we are acknowledging that our efforts are not the sole source of our success. We are recognizing that we are part of a larger divine plan, a plan that is good, that is full of hope, and that is based on God's love and faithfulness toward us. God does not require us to figure everything out on our own. He does not expect us to carry the weight of the world on our shoulders. Instead, he invites us to lay our burdens down and trust that he will supply what we need in his perfect timing. Resting in God's provision also means letting go of the anxiety and fear that often accompany the need for security. It's natural to worry about finances, job stability, relationships, and the future. We are living in a time when uncertainty is all around us, and it's easy to let fear creep in, especially when we can't see the way forward. But resting in God's provision is an act of surrender to the truth that our future is in his hands. We don't need to worry about tomorrow because he is already there, preparing the way and ensuring that everything we need will be provided. And it doesn't mean that challenges won't come or that there won't be times of hardship, but it does mean that God is faithful to sustain us through it all. The beautiful thing about God's provision is that it's not limited by what we can see or understand. We often look at our circumstances and think that we don't have enough money, enough time, enough resources. But God's provision transcends our human limitations. He provides not just for our physical needs, but for our emotional and spiritual needs as well. He provides peace when we're anxious, comfort when we're grieving, strength when we're weak, and wisdom when we're confused. God's provision is abundant, overflowing, and tailored to meet every part of who we are. Sometimes his provision shows up in ways we don't expect, in the kindness of a stranger, the encouragement of a friend, or a job opportunity that seems to come out of nowhere. These are all reminders that God is working behind the scenes, orchestrating things for our good. In a world that often tells us to depend on ourselves and our own abilities, resting in God's provision requires us to lay down our pride and self-reliance. It's an act of humility to acknowledge that we are not the ultimate source of our success and well-being. When we trust God's provision, we are saying, I don't have all the answers, but I trust that you do. I don't have all the resources, but I trust that you will provide. I don't know the future, but I trust that you are already there, preparing a way. This kind of trust is not passive. It's active surrender. It's choosing every day to rely on God and not on our own understanding or abilities. There will be times when it's hard to rest, when circumstances are difficult, when the bills pile up, when health issues arise, or when relationships break down. It can feel impossible to trust that God will provide. But this is where our faith is tested. We are reminded, especially in times of difficulty, that God's provision is not dependent on our circumstances. His love and faithfulness are not conditional, and his provision is not limited to times of abundance. In fact, it is often in our moments of greatest need that we experience God's provision most deeply. It's when we feel like we have nothing left that God steps in and shows us just how faithful he is, providing exactly what we need when we need it most. Resting in God's provision does not mean that we stop working or that we become passive in our lives. It means that we stop striving for control and stop relying solely on our own efforts. It means that we open ourselves to receive God's gifts, whether they come in the form of financial provision, wisdom, guidance, or emotional strength. When we rest in God's provision, we trust that he will always give us what we need at the right time in the right way. This is not a passive, complacent trust. It's an active surrender to his love, to his faithfulness, and to his perfect timing. In the end, resting in God's provision is an invitation to experience true peace. It's an invitation to stop worrying, to stop stressing, and to start trusting that God has everything under control. It's an invitation to find comfort in knowing that we are not alone, that God is always with us, and that he will always provide for us in ways that are beyond what we could ever imagine. When we trust him, when we rest in his provision, we can live with confidence, knowing that he has already made a way for us. We live in a world that is obsessed with the destination, the end goal, the finish line, the accomplishment. From a young age, we're taught to focus on where we're going, not necessarily how we get there. Whether it's getting into the right school, landing the perfect job, reaching the pinnacle of success, or achieving personal milestones, society tells us that the reward is found at the end of the journey. The problem with this mindset is that we often miss the beauty, growth, and life-changing experiences that come along the way. We've all heard the saying, it's not about the destination, it's about the journey. But have we truly internalized it? How often do we rush through life checking boxes and crossing things off our to-do lists, thinking that once we achieve a certain goal, we'll finally be happy, fulfilled, or at peace? We live in the constant pursuit of the next big thing, always looking ahead and forgetting to appreciate the present moment. We focus on the finish line and neglect the process that brings us there. The reality is, life is a journey, not a sprint. We are always in the process of becoming, of growing, learning, failing, rising, and evolving. And if we are constantly fixated on the destination, we miss out on the richness of life that happens in the in-between moments. The challenges, the setbacks, the little victories, the struggles, the relationships, the lessons, they all contribute to who we are becoming, and they shape the very person we need to be when we reach the destination. Every step along the way is a part of God's perfect plan for us. It's easy to get caught up in the idea that the destination holds all the answers, or that once we reach a certain point in our lives, we will have arrived. But here's the truth. Life does not work like that. We will never truly arrive in the sense that we think. Even after we reach one goal, another one will appear, and the cycle will continue. So if we only focus on the destination, we'll spend our entire lives chasing something that is always just out of reach. Instead of rushing toward the finish line, we are invited to slow down and embrace the journey, the experiences we gain along the way, the people we meet, and the lessons we learn are what make life truly meaningful. The moments of struggle that challenge us to dig deeper and push through adversity, the quiet moments of reflection that help us understand who we are, and the small wins that remind us of our progress, they are all part of the bigger picture. This doesn't mean that goals and destinations don't matter. They absolutely do. Goals give us direction, motivation, and purpose. But when we begin to place all of our focus on the end result, we lose sight of the present moment. We fail to appreciate the beauty of the journey itself. The journey is where life happens. It's where we are refined, where we develop resilience, where we discover our passions, and where we find meaning in the small moments. Think about it. We often learn the most during our lowest points, not when everything is going perfectly. It's in those times of struggle that we discover what we're truly made of. It's in the pain, the failure, the uncertainty that we learn to rely on our faith, to trust God's timing, and to build the strength we need to persevere. If we only focused on the destination, we would miss out on the lessons embedded in our difficulties. Embracing the journey means accepting the highs and the lows, knowing that both are essential for growth. Embracing the journey also means embracing the imperfections and the unpredictability of life. We can plan and prepare all we want, but life has a way of surprising us. It doesn't always go according to plan, and that's okay. Sometimes the detours and the unexpected twists are exactly what we need to grow into the person we are meant to be. Life is full of unknowns, but it's those unknowns that make it exciting and full of possibility. If we're always trying to control the outcome, we miss the beauty of the spontaneity that life offers. When we let go of the need to control everything, we open ourselves up to experiences we never could have anticipated. So how do we embrace the journey? It starts with being present. Being present means fully engaging in the here and now without being distracted by what's coming next. It means slowing down, appreciating the little things, and finding joy in the process. It means not waiting for the next big thing to happen before we allow ourselves to be happy or fulfilled. Instead, we find joy and contentment in the journey itself. Embracing the journey also involves practicing gratitude. Gratitude shifts our perspective from what we don't have to what we do have. It helps us appreciate the beauty in the mundane, the lessons in the challenges, and the growth in the struggle. When we embrace gratitude, we begin to see life as a gift rather than a series of tasks to be completed. Another way to embrace the journey is to cultivate patience. So often we want things to happen immediately. We want instant results, immediate success, and quick gratification. But patience teaches us to trust in God's timing and to understand that some things take time. The best things in life are often the ones that are worth the wait. When we embrace patience, we give ourselves permission to move at a pace that aligns with God's plan for our lives, not the rushed, frantic pace that the world demands. Finally, embracing the journey means embracing ourselves. It means recognizing that we are not defined by the destination we reach, but by who we are becoming along the way. Our worth is not tied to our accomplishments or the end result. It is found in the process of growing, learning, and evolving. We are already enough right here, right now, as we are. When we focus only on the destination, we forget to live in the present moment. We forget that life is happening right now. The journey isn't just a means to an end. It's the whole purpose of life. The relationships we build, the moments of joy and sorrow, the lessons we learn, and the growth we experience, these are the things that make life meaningful. If we spend our entire lives rushing to the next goal, we'll miss the richness that comes from embracing the journey. So the next time you find yourself fixated on the end result, take a step back and appreciate where you are right now. Take time to enjoy the process, to learn from the struggles, and to find beauty in the journey. After all, life isn't about arriving, it's about becoming. And that in itself is the most beautiful part of all. God didn't call us to live a life of stress and constant pursuit of status. He called us to walk in faith, to trust in His timing, and to believe that He has already equipped us with everything we need to fulfill His purpose. When we stop looking for a job and start looking for God, we begin to see that everything we need is already within us, waiting to be unlocked. So let go of the search for a job and let God lead you to the place where your true calling lies.